As we are taking in this new jobs report, we're always glad to see that be added. But I'm concerned about that the jobs reports from January and February have been downgraded, and we're also seeing an uptick in unemployment. But the real news today is the impact of these tariffs and putting a $4,000 tax on the average American family and what they will have to pay in increased costs. And these tariffs are not strategic. They are not meant to have a plan for bringing jobs and more growth back to our country. And the fact that so many economists are saying this is the beginning of lurching us into a recession, that is our real concern today as we are evaluating these job numbers.
Well, on the subject of jobs, the president and his allies say that tariffs will bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States. In the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, there's been a huge loss of manufacturing jobs over the last 35 years, some 260,000 fewer manufacturing jobs today than there were back in 1992. So are these tariffs a good way to bring them back? And if not these tariffs, what will?
The way we bring manufacturing back is by the investments that we made in the CHIPS Act. And we can use tariffs strategically to bring good jobs and manufacturing jobs back to Massachusetts, back to the country. But what we have here is tariffs by chaos. We don't even understand where the White House came up with the numbers for these tariff rates. And it is not part of a strategy that is laid out. So what we have is chaos, retribution, uncertainty, and we're already seeing Stellantis lay off temporarily 900 employees, Whirlpool laying off employees because it has created uncertainty for manufacturers, and it takes sometimes decades for us to rebuild these supply chains. But in the short term, they are doing just the opposite of what they promised the American people, that they would come in and reduce their costs. Again, this is going to be a tax for the average family of almost $4,000 in increased costs from these tariffs alone. And you couple that with what they're doing in taking away Social Security, health care, veterans benefits, funding for public schools, and child care. And this is a disaster for family budgets across this country.
They would say that they haven't taken away Social Security. What they've done or considered is changing the way the Social Security offices respond to claims. I want to ask you, obviously, these tariffs are broadly unpopular in the United States. The vast majority of voters say they are against them, but they are supported by some parts of the traditional Democratic base. The president of the United Auto Workers Union was on with Caitlin Collins, Sean Fain. This is what he said. He supports some of these tariffs. Listen.
People forget about the arsenal of democracy and how excess capacity in this country was used to support the war effort and delivered a victory in World War II for America. And so we really have to look at reality and quit using fear tactics and scare tactics in talking about this. There's a lot of things we disagree with this administration on, like eliminating contracts for, hundreds of thousands of federal workers. But on this issue, we agree on tariffs.
So what's your message to Sean Fain and your union supporters about why they're wrong on this?
I agree with labor when talking about tariffs that are strategic, but that is not what we have here. And what we are seeing is already an impact on UAW workers with the 900 layoffs that we have already seen. So I don't know how this administration is trying to paint itself as pro-worker when they are actively working against collective bargaining, and they are not using tariffs to level the playing field, to increase jobs here, to make sure that our products are sold. They are isolating us on the global economic stage. We are going to see, as we've already seen from China, retaliatory tariffs, and they go after our allies, as well as countries like China, where we want to use good tariff policy to make sure that they are not flooding us with cheap goods and taking American jobs. So let's have a strategy behind this. Let's make sure that everything we do is helping that consumer at home. And just to go back to Social Security for a moment, what they are doing here is wrecking the infrastructure of Social Security so they can rob the benefit. You cannot say you are protecting Social Security and have the layoffs we're seeing, making our seniors drive hours to have an in-person appointment, which they have to go to an office far from where they live, when they were able previously to do this through a telephone call or to be able to have that office close by if they needed to go there. All of that is designed to undercut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, in order to give a tax cut to billionaires. It is an outrageous ripoff of the American taxpayer that we are seeing from this administration.